It all comes back to justice. We live in a world where the color of your skin or the neighborhood you live in determines what food you will have on your plate. Our Constitution promises to establish justice, to promote the general welfare, but operates a system in which 23.5 million people don't have access to healthy foods, where 2% of all households live more than 10 miles from a grocery store, and where nearly half of these individuals are living in poverty. Our country spends more than $4 trillion on healthcare each year, and yet leaves 17 million children not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. And don't be mistaken, these issues, like many in our country, are wrapped up in a structure which systematically disadvantages people of color. We live in a world where neighborhoods with predominantly people of color are twice as likely to lack access to supermarkets, where a Big Mac is often the most accessible food item, where what you can afford and what surrounds you becomes your only option, and where food, the natural element meant to connect us to one another, becomes one more thing which drives us farther apart. So we educate. We see the opportunity to reach vulnerable children in a setting in which their presence is required. We recognize that knowledge and awareness are key to achieving agency, to rising above unequal circumstances. We acknowledge that if we can reach the kids affected by food injustice, if we can just show them that their health matters, if we can guide them in building the habits and teach them the skills to think about how they're fueling their bodies and where their food comes from, maybe, just maybe, we can start to make a difference. Inequality. Its presence looms. Even when we don't see it, it lurks in the shadows, taking advantage of the most vulnerable among us. Health. The messages we see and the voices we hear drill into us the remarkable and paramount nature of pursuing well being, and yet the circumstances we're dealt impact our ability to do so. Food. The nourishment of the body, the necessity to human connection, but our relationships to it depend entirely on our identities. Education. The key to bridging the divide, narrowing the gaps between our communities, furthering our goal of achieving equality by using that with which we're most familiar, the pursuit of knowledge. So, if we're going to talk about we the people, we have to talk about we the people. We can't talk about inequality without talking about food, without talking about health, without talking about education. We cannot pursue justice without acknowledging the different contributors to inequality in our country and the web of interconnectedness between these four: inequality, health, food, and education.